Okay, so let's dive into something I'm sure you've been hearing a lot about these days, machine learning. It's everywhere you look now, right?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how quickly it's gone from like a niche tech topic to something we see every day.
Totally.
Yeah.
But now it's like everyone's talking about it, but maybe not everyone really gets it, you know? Like what's really going on behind the scenes? What is machine learning?
Right. There's definitely a lot of buzz, maybe some hype too, and people throwing around the term without really understanding it.
Exactly. So we're going to try to unpack that a bit today. So first things first, this isn't about like building a super intelligent robot like you see in the movies, right?
No, not exactly, at least not yet anyway. Really, it's more about using data to teach computers how to learn and make predictions all on their own, which is a pretty different approach to programming than we used to use.
Okay, so instead of programming a computer with a set of rules, we're now giving it the ability to actually learn its own rules from, well, from data.
Exactly. Think of it like, well, imagine you show a computer a million pictures of, let's say, cats and dogs, and you tell it which one is which.
Like training a puppy with flashcards. Cat dog, cat good boy.
Right. Exactly. But with a computer. And over time, it learns from all those examples and gets really good at telling the difference between, in this case, a cat and a dog, all on its own.
Wow.
And that, in a nutshell, is supervised learning.
Okay, so it's like the computer is learning to identify those patterns, make predictions without us explicitly telling it what to do. That's amazing.
It is. But keep in mind that supervised learning is only one type of machine learning. There's also unsupervised learning, where we don't give the algorithm those helpful labels.
Oh, okay, so it's got to figure it out on its own. So instead of flashcards, it's more like, I don't know, giving the computer a junk drawer and saying, organize this.
Yeah, kind of. It has to figure out how to group things together based on shared characteristics, even if we don't tell it what those characteristics are. That's unsupervised learning in action.
That's wild.
It is. And then, on top of that, there's also reinforcement learning.
Okay, and what's that all about?
Well, that one is about, well, it's all about learning through trial and error, kind of like we do as humans, right? So think of, imagine a computer playing a video game.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
So it tries different things,
Mhm.
makes different moves, and gets rewarded when it does something good, like scores points or wins a level, and penalized when it messes up. And eventually, through all this trial and error, it learns to play the game really well.
So it's basically learning from experience, just like we do.
Yeah, exactly. It's figuring out what works and what doesn't, all on its own. And that, my friend, is reinforcement learning.
That's amazing. So we've got these like three main flavors of machine learning: supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement. And each one is like tackling problems in a totally different way.
Exactly. And they're being used to solve all sorts of problems these days, which is
Mhm.
really exciting. But like with anything new and powerful, there are also misconceptions floating around about what it can actually do, and how it works.
Right. Like, is this the answer to everything? Are robots going to take over the world? Should we be scared? I'm kidding. Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's easy to get carried away, but honestly, that's why we're doing this deep dive, right? To separate fact from fiction.
Totally. So what's like the biggest myth you hear about machine learning? What do people get wrong?
But one of the biggest ones is that, it's some kind of magic solution. You can throw it at any problem and poof, problem solved.
Like it's an all-powerful genie.
Exactly. But the truth is, like any powerful tool, it needs the right ingredients to work its magic. Think of it like baking a cake.
Okay, I love this analogy. So what are the key ingredients when it comes to machine learning? I'm guessing data is one.
You got it. High quality, relevant data. That's
Yeah.
absolutely crucial for training those machine learning models. You can have the most sophisticated algorithm in the world, but if you feed it bad data,
You get a bad cake.
pretty much,
Huh.
garbage in, garbage out, as they say.
That makes sense. So it's not just about having a lot of data, but having the right data.
Exactly. And that's often where things can get tricky, because finding, cleaning, and labeling that data, it's a huge task.
And that brings up another big question. How much can machine learning actually do on its own? Like, is this whole thing really going to put us out of a job?
Yeah, the robots are coming for our jobs. I'm kidding, of course. But seriously, that idea that machine learning can just function without any human involvement whatsoever, it's a big one, and it's just not true.
So it's not like one day we all wake up and the machines are just running everything.
Not quite. Humans are still essential at every stage of this whole process, from collecting and preparing the data, to choosing the right models, to interpreting the results, to making sure it's used ethically. It's a team effort.
So it's more like humans and machines working together, each bringing their own strengths to the table.
Exactly. It's about augmenting our abilities, not replacing them. We're using machine learning as a powerful tool to help us make better decisions, not handing over the reins completely.
So it's less about machines taking over and more about us having these like superpower tools to help us do things better and faster.
Exactly. It's about working smarter, not harder, right?
Totally. Okay, so we've tackled a couple of big myths here. But what about this one? I feel like I hear this all the time, that machine learning is only for those, like, giant tech companies with tons of money and resources.
Yes, the only for the big guys myth. And I get it. It seems like something that would require, massive data centers and a whole army of engineers.
Right, like it's totally out of reach for, say, a small business owner or someone just starting out.
Yeah, but the truth is, it's becoming way more accessible than you might think. You don't need to be Google to take advantage of machine learning these days.
Really? So you're saying even smaller companies can leverage this tech?
Absolutely. There are tons of user-friendly platforms and tools out there that are designed specifically for, people without a PhD in computer science.
Yeah.
And they're becoming more powerful all the time.
That's amazing. Because I think a lot of smaller companies might feel, I don't know, intimidated by the whole machine learning world or think it's just like completely out of their league.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
But honestly, there are a lot of resources out there to help businesses get started, even pre-built models that you can adapt for your own needs. You don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better about all this.
Yeah.
See, myths busted. Which brings me to, well, probably the biggest one of them, all the fear that all these robots are going to take our jobs.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's understandable though, right? Headlines about automation can be pretty scary. But if you look back at history, every time we have some new technological advancement, it does change the job market for sure, but it doesn't completely wipe out all the jobs.
Right. Things shift around, new jobs are created that we couldn't even imagine before.
Exactly. Like 100 years ago, did anyone think there would be like social media managers or app developers? No way. And while it's true that machine learning might automate some tasks, probably even some jobs, it's also creating new opportunities, new roles that we haven't even thought of yet. It's not necessarily about job elimination, but job evolution.
That's a good way to look at it. And in many ways, this tech can actually free us up from those like tedious, repetitive tasks that we don't really enjoy anyway.
Absolutely. Think about it. If a machine can handle those mundane things, it gives us more time and energy to focus on the things that we humans are really good at, like creativity, problem solving, the stuff that requires that human touch.
That's a much more optimistic way to think about it. Instead of us versus the machines, it's like, how can we work together? How can this technology help us reach our full potential?
Exactly. It's all about collaboration. Okay, so we've been pretty positive about all the possibilities of machine learning, but I think it's important to acknowledge that, like any technology, it does have its limitations. It's not perfect.
Right. It's not like it's a magic crystal ball that can see the future with perfect accuracy.
Exactly. I think one of the biggest things for people to keep in mind is that machine learning models, they can and do make mistakes. They're not infallible.
So even though we're talking about all this amazing technology, we still need to use our own judgment, our own critical thinking skills.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can't just blindly trust every prediction a machine learning model spits out, right? We need to be able to look at the results, understand the context, and factor in our own knowledge and expertise.
So it's not just about the tech itself, but how we use it.
100%. Think of it like, getting a second opinion. You wouldn't make a major life decision based on a single source of information, would you? It's the same with machine learning. We need to use it to inform our decisions, but not to dictate them.
Okay, that's a really good point. We've talked about how important the data is, how these models can make mistakes. So what else should people keep in mind as we, continue down this machine learning road?
I think one thing that often gets overlooked is that these models, they're only as good as the data they're trained on. So if the data is biased in some way, the model's predictions might be biased too.
Oh, that's a good point. So if the data itself reflects some kind of existing bias or prejudice, we're essentially baking that into the system.
Unfortunately, yes. And that's why it's so important to have those human experts involved. People who can spot those biases, understand the limitations of the data, and interpret the results with a critical eye. It's not just about the tech, but about using it ethically and responsibly.
It's like that old saying, with great power comes great responsibility. We've got this incredible technology at our fingertips, but we have to use it wisely.
Exactly. And that's a conversation that's only going to get more important as machine learning becomes even more powerful and more integrated into our lives.
And speaking of how widespread it's becoming, I think it would be helpful for our listeners to get a sense of just how widely used machine learning already is. I mean, it's kind of everywhere, but sometimes it's hard to see. What are some real-world examples of how it's making an impact, like in different industries?
Oh, wow. You might be surprised how often you encounter machine learning without even realizing it. It really is all around us. Let's start with healthcare, for example.
Okay, that's a big one these days.
It is. And machine learning is already having a huge impact. For one thing, it can help doctors diagnose diseases earlier and more accurately than ever before. Imagine a future where diseases like cancer are caught at stage 1, when they're much easier to treat, all thanks to machine learning.
Wow, that would be amazing.
Right. It's also being used to personalize treatment plans based on a patient's unique genetic makeup. No more one-size-fits-all medicine. And it's even being used to accelerate drug discovery, helping researchers develop life-saving medications faster than ever before.
It sounds like it's transforming healthcare from the ground up.
It really is. And that's just one example. Let's switch gears and talk about finance for a minute. Machine learning algorithms are already hard at work in the financial world, too. They can detect fraudulent transactions in real time, which is a huge help in preventing fraud.
That's a big one, especially with all the online transactions these days. It feels like every other week I'm hearing about some new data breach.
Yeah, it's a constant battle. But machine learning is giving us an edge in the fight against fraud. These algorithms can also assess credit risks more accurately, which helps banks make better lending decisions. And they're even being used to make those super smart investment decisions, the kind that used to require a whole team of analysts.
So they're giving Wall Street a run for their money.
You could say that. But let's move on to something a little closer to home, shall we? How about retail? Ever wonder how those online stores seem to know exactly what you want to buy?
Oh my gosh, all the time. It's a little creepy sometimes how accurate those recommendations can be.
Yeah, it's like they're reading your mind. But of course, it's not magic. It's machine learning. Those algorithms are constantly analyzing your browsing history, what you've purchased in the past, even what other shoppers with similar tastes are buying, all to suggest things you might be interested in. It's called personalized shopping.
And it's definitely effective. I can't tell you how many times I've clicked on one of those recommendations and ended up buying something.
Right. But it's not just about getting you to spend more money. Machine learning is also helping retailers optimize their inventory so they can make sure they have the items you want in stock, those things that are in high demand.
That makes sense. No more going to the store, or online for that matter, only to find out that the thing you want is sold out.
Exactly. Machine learning is helping to make those out-of-stock messages a thing of the past. Okay, so we've talked about healthcare, finance, retail. What about transportation? We've all heard about self-driving cars, but what else is happening in that world?
Yeah, self-driving cars definitely seem to be the poster child for machine learning these days.
They are. And for good reason. It takes a ton of data and some seriously powerful algorithms to train a car to navigate all the complexities of our roads, traffic, pedestrians, weather conditions, all that. But machine learning is doing a lot more in transportation than just self-driving cars. It's being used to optimize traffic flow in cities, like using AI to control traffic signals to reduce congestion.
Oh, wow, that would be a game changer in some cities I know.
Right. It's also being used to find the most efficient routes for delivery trucks, which helps reduce fuel consumption and delivery times, which is good for business and the environment.
Okay, so machine learning is making our roads safer, less congested, and more efficient. That's amazing.
And those are just a few examples. We're seeing machine learning being applied in so many different fields, from agriculture to entertainment to education.
It's really incredible to think about how much impact this technology is already having on our lives.
And we're just getting started. As machine learning continues to evolve, we can expect even more groundbreaking applications and innovations in the years to come. It's really an exciting time to be paying attention to this field.
It really feels like we're at this tipping point, like machine learning is about to fundamentally change so many things about how we live and work. But with all these advancements happening so fast, I imagine there are also new challenges popping up all the time. What are some of the things that, the researchers and developers, what are they grappling with as they look ahead?
Oh, that's a great question. It's such a fast-moving field. There's always something new and exciting, but also some big questions to figure out. One of the biggest things right now is something called, it's called explainable AI.
Explainable AI. Okay, I'm intrigued. What's that all about?
So as these machine learning models are getting more and more complex and the decisions they're making are having a bigger impact on our lives, it's becoming increasingly important to understand not just what they're deciding, but why.
Oh, that makes sense. So it's not enough to just know, okay, the algorithm says yes. We need to know why it's saying yes. What's the logic behind it?
Exactly. Especially as we start entrusting these models with more and more responsibility, like in healthcare or finance. We need to be able to kind of peek under the hood and see how they're thinking.
So instead of it just being this mysterious black box, we need to make it more transparent.
Exactly. And that's what explainable AI is all about, making these sophisticated algorithms more transparent and interpretable so that we can, one, trust their outputs more, and two, more easily spot any potential errors or biases.
That makes a lot of sense. So explainable AI, that's one big challenge. What else is on the horizon for machine learning? What are you personally most excited about?
Oh, there's so much. But one area that I'm particularly excited about is edge computing.
Edge computing, okay. Another buzzword. Break that down for me.
So traditionally, the way machine learning works is you collect tons of data, you send it to a giant data center, the cloud, and that's where all the processing happens.
Okay, makes sense. It's all happening in those massive server farms somewhere.
Exactly. But with edge computing, we can actually bring that processing power closer to the data source, right there on the device itself. So imagine your phone or even your car being able to run those complex machine learning algorithms right there locally without having to send all that data back and forth to the cloud.
Oh, wow, I get it. So instead of sending all that data to the cloud, we're bringing the processing power to the data. That's fascinating and way more efficient, I imagine.
Exactly. And faster, which opens up a whole world of possibilities for real-time applications where speed is critical. Imagine a self-driving car that can make those split-second decisions based on data that's being processed right there in the vehicle itself without any lag time.
Oh, that's a game changer. Okay, so edge computing, that's huge. Wow, so much to think about. As we start to wrap up our deep dive into machine learning here, what's the key takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with? What's the big picture?
For me, it's all about approaching machine learning with this sense of curiosity and wonder, because it truly is an amazing field with so much potential, but also with, a healthy dose of critical thinking. We can't just buy into the hype or get swept up in all the, the scary headlines. We need to be informed, ask questions, and be engaged in this conversation as the technology continues to evolve.
Because ultimately, the future of machine learning, it's not something that's going to be decided for us. It's something that we're all going to shape together through our choices and actions.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, on that note, we'll leave you with this thought. What excites you most about the possibilities of machine learning? And what concerns you the most? Let us know. We're always up for a good deep dive.